National Puerto Rican Bar Association, established to meet the question on a national basis: what is Puerto Rico? A nation, a state, or something in between? Join the conversation every week right here. Welcome everybody. Welcome, Steve. This is Tony Suarez, the host of the of Equal Justice, our show podcast about Puerto Rico and the National Puerto Rican Bar Association Conference, with my co-host Steve Alcina. Thank you, Steve, for joining me today once again. For this is our third broadcast as we prepare for the national conference that's coming up in September, and we'll be discussing all those themes during the next couple of months as we lead up to September, when we have our conference of the Puerto Rican Bar Associations, which include Florida, New York, Illinois, and Puerto Rico. So we'll be bringing lawyers from around the country, law schools, law students for the moot court competition. You know, you've heard about that. We'll be discussing some of that as well in the company when we get to Florida A&M Law School, where I teach. And we'll be having this conference, moot court. So there'll be more information about that, and we're going to be running those information for you, just in case you want to know about this. You'll be able to go to our website, and you could write it down in the website there, and be able to see exactly what we're doing, all the different things that we're doing at the conference. And so it's not just a meeting for lawyers, although that is also happening, right? Mm-hmm. We're also having a moot court competition among the law schools of the country. We've invited over 60 law schools that are coming from all over the place to litigate about Puerto Rico. So because we've discussed that many times, you know, you go to law school, you learn about the Constitution. You learn the Article 1, Article 2, Article 3. You learn about the Bill of Rights and the different amendments. But you know what you never learn about? You never learn about the territorial clause, which is where Puerto Rico is living, you know, and for why Puerto Rico has limited rights. So our attempt with the national conference is to bring attention to the issue of Puerto Rico. And by bringing the bar associations together, bringing the lawyers together, bringing the law schools together, and all of this is free for everyone else, okay? Lawyers have to pay, everybody else can go for free to listen. So you can come, you can write it down, write this information down, and it's September 18th, 19th, and you will be able to go for free and just listen to the arguments are going on. Now, of course, people say, Tony, you're not solving anything. No, we're not going to solve the problem of Puerto Rico. What we're going to do is talk about the problem so that in the future, and this next show after this show, we're going to have Congressman Darren Soto on the line, and he's going to be talking about his bill that would bring to that. So I don't want to confuse too many topics for today's show, because part of this show is what are we going to be doing at that conference? Now, obviously, we're going to have a guest now who's going to be talking mostly to lawyers, but I think that for all of you who have businesses or going through divorce, you're going to need this information. So let's bring into the discussion our guest for today, Gustavo Torres. ¿Cómo está, Gustavo?
Muy bien. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Okay. You want information? This is Gustavo's information. You can look him up. And the more important part is that he's a certified public accountant. Most people know what a certified public accountant is. He's not an accountant. Now, he's not a tax preparer, although he could do those things. He's a certified public accountant. That's a high level. You have to take exams to be there, and to get a high level of training to get your title of CPA. But that's not what it only is, okay? As you can see, he has this little other initial called a CFE. And what is that? A Certified Fraud Examiner. Whoa, a Certified Fraud Examiner. That's some heavy stuff, Steve, okay? That is some heavy stuff. And that's when you get the IRS is looking at you, that's when you need to get your Certified Fraud Examiner. Now, why do we bring Gustavo into this debate, this question? Because most lawyers, Steve, and most people, when they're going through life and they end up in disputes, right? Whether the divorce case or it's a business, you're breaking up with your partner. You know what happens? You're trying to find out how to divide things. You're looking for justice, right? You're looking for justice. I love to love these little things. Everyone is looking for some sort of justice in their work, and that's what we don't have. You know, we don't have justice when you don't have the right facts. You know, so what I want to do is discuss how do you go about getting justice. How do you go about getting justice in the case?
Gustavo.
So
Okay.
this is where I think that we can examine and have an accountant look at a question of the divorce or a business dispute and determine. I want to give you a little background just to before we get into the conversation with Gustavo. And that is that when I was very young, many years ago, when I was still young and doing divorce cases, right? I had a case of a woman who was getting divorced from her husband. His business was to deliver frozen foods to different stores in the Bronx and in Manhattan. So he would pick up at La Mercado the frozen food and he would take them to place to place to place. But his whole business was cash, right? Now she's getting a divorce. She said, he makes a lot of money. He makes a lot of money. Go after. We're going to get a fair distribution of the asset, and we also want to get some child support, and I want to get some alimony. But proving it is something else, and that I didn't know how to. And they were going around the circle trying to prove it. Hired an investigator to follow him around. That didn't work because it doesn't prove anything. It just proves that he stopped at all these places. Doesn't make how much money he's making and so forth. It became very frustrating, and I knew then, this is 40 years ago, that, my God, without having this kind of expertise around your side, you know where you're at? You're here. I know nothing. Okay,
Yeah, pretty much.
so if you know nothing, you need to be able to get someone who can do something. So, Gustavo, let's talk about your expertise. What's your background? Because let me just read it. Certified public accountant and a certified fraud examiner with more than 22 years of experience in accounting and taxation, forensic accounting, and litigation support. The founder of multiple professional services firms specializing in financial analysis, fraud investigation, business valuation, and expert witness services. Wow, eso mucho. So, Gustavo, we're up. By the way, this is Steve, my co-host on this, because I didn't have a chance to meet him.
Pleasure to meet you, Steve.
Gustavo,
About yourself.
pleasure meeting you. So talk to us. Tell us
That,
about.
that's good.
Talk
Okay,
to us about.
thank you for this opportunity again, and I like what you mentioned about seeking justice. I think if we are able to get justice for everybody in the world, we are going to have a more balanced world. So I think it's critical to be sure that we have justice, and we cannot have justice with all the facts and circumstances. As long as we know it, then we are able to have a reasonable decision to bring justice to the parties. So this is my role there. Obviously, as a CFE, Certified Fraud Examiner, this is a certification that I passed some lessons, some tests, testing me how to research for a particular fraud. And what is different from the CPA, when the CPA make an audit, we are not looking for a fraud. We are just making an audit, and maybe a fraud can come to our attention. When you are a CFE, you know there is a fraud. So you want to identify the fraud, who committed the fraud, the mechanism, and where are the assets. So we can go after that. But at the end, as an expert witness, and maybe talking on expert witness is going to be more general than CFE, because not all the cases I represent in court are related to fraud. Sometimes I have to go there just to only translate it very difficult and complex information in a very easy to understand way, so the judge and the parties can make a decision. This is mostly my role on the case, and it's critical for any case that includes finance. because there are so many different terms, so many different applications to finance, that if you are not an expert on the subject matter, you may be taking decision under incomplete information or wrong information. I have very nice stories on my file of past experience, where I was able to bring understanding on the financial situation. The most common one is for marriage dissolution, and obviously the strong part. I'm not going to say man or woman, because it could be side or the other. We're talking about justice, balance, no. But usually the strong part on the finance, the one that the person that control the finance, usually will like to maybe control the flow of information, just to have a decision on his side on assets distribution, a potential alimony, and child support. My role there is going to determine what are the actual assets, what belong to each one, what is part of their marriage, or what are premarital assets. And sometimes there are different applications, because there are some premarital assets that may become a common asset to the marriage under certain circumstances. Some people don't know that, and even lawyers don't measure that, because lawyers focus on the application of the law. They focus on the process. They don't focus maybe on the technical part. I come aboard to help them understand and give them tools to understand what was happening with the finance, and what will be the best decision to reach a balance the situation. So
Let me interrupt you here because I want to direct it so people can understand. Because we lawyers, and then you get and your specialty is even more difficult, right? We got the situation where we talking and so specifically, and people lose it. And the purpose of this show is really not so much for the lawyers, although they can go to the professional CLE. By the way, Gustavo will be speaking at the conference, and he'll be teaching a course called Forensic Accounting for Lawyers, helping them in litigation. So he'll be teaching them the 2-hour credit course for the lawyers, and he'll be teaching that course. But this purpose of this show is to reach everybody else, who doesn't understand what we're talking about. So, well, let's get some basic things. When you're talking about this a question of forensic audit, why we're looking? Because we're looking for the money, is right? We're looking for the money.
that's correct. Well, I'm about money. I entered in a case,
Right.
to make a simple explanation of what is the financial situation. So if you go there to make a decision for any reason, and there is some finance, there are some money on the table, I
Right.
help the parties understand what money is there and what belong to who.
Yeah, this picture that I have here aboard is a picture of the federal budget.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so when you're talking about audits and fraud, literally, what a CPA has to go through the books. He's going to go through the books of the corporation or the family, through the checkbook, and he's going to look through all this stuff, and he's going to start looking for the money. All right, so this is what it's all about, because what he needs to do is usar la lupa, ¿verdad? He has to now starts looking through all that paperwork in order to get to what is the truth.
That's correct.
And that is the hard part, because you're either going to start praying for a solution, okay, and hoping that you have it, or you're going to have someone who's actually going to get you to justice, okay? So I lined up these pictures precisely because I think it explains in a layman's terms what is going on here. What is going on? Because you go into a courtroom for divorce, or in many cases I've had business fraud, partners breaking up, right? And then and I have a case that's pending right now. Hopefully it doesn't get to litigation, but we're talking about it. The people are breaking up a business, and one person was handling the books and the other person was handling the operations. So they knew about the operations and how to run it, how to collect the money, this happened to be a school, so that how to get the students and the actual, but the other one person was the management of the money. And there's a big dispute there about how much money this business actually made. So in something, a real life kind of a situation like that, Gustavo, can you give us a little talking about how you start beginning to tackle that problem?
You will you will not believe this, but I start with the emotional part. I start creating a timeline. I start creating a timeline of, how were things in the past, what happened, and what is happening now. So I can start understanding a story. I try to recreate a story. And I can tell you, the emotional part changed with finance. So when I start setting dates and I start setting different cause and effect between the emotional state and the financial situation, I can start identify point where I can look at to find what is the real financial situation. And sometimes this information is not available, so I have to seek for it. But sometimes it's available. I just have to make an interpretation. A recent case, just to make this very practical for the people that is listening to us. In a recent case, I get some report. This lady spent about $25,000 in a lawyer, and she was not receiving the right support on his process. And as a matter of fact, the his her lawyer was telling her that she get nothing. Most of the assets were marital assets, so she get almost nothing. I take a look at the books, and just by taking a look at the book, I found that there is a rental business there for some property that they buy together, and I didn't see any rental business reported because there was no business. They understood that they don't have to report a business for rental. No, there is money flowing there, and she's 50% owner of the real estate because they buy it together, and she's 50% business owner of the business that create the cash flows. It was a little difficult to explain at the beginning to let them know there is a business there and you have to value and we have to consider this in the marital asset and marital income. But eventually they understood that. And this is the kind of thing that maybe I have to find information that is not reported, and I look alternative way to find the report, like government reports and other trends that show me what is happening there. Or maybe the information is there in front of everybody. The only thing is that people don't understand what is happening there. Let's, for example, you have a marital business, but I mingle the funds of my wife or husband, my couple in the marital business. I start mingle everything, and I spend business expenditure from the personal account, and I start doing personal expenditure from the business account. Then I bring in the couple, the wife or husband. They may become a partner of the business, and I was able in other cases to demonstrate that because of the way they run the financial of the business became, she or he became an investor in the business. They became part of the business. In one of the case that when I when I came to the case, they say that the wife doesn't take anything. I was able to find $500,000. We settled for $500,000. Was very bad that she spent $25,000 in order to reach this point. And in the desperation, she looked for the expert, then to bring good information about what the financial mean. So they focus on the process, and they didn't look at the facts. But after that, and it's very, very important for me, after that, we were able to settle this in a mediation. And this is very important stuff. I'm very proud uh, to be able to tell you that about 90% of the report I present go to me to a mediation. Why? Because my report has been so convincing that they don't want the judge to make a decision. They prefer to negotiate this before a court. And I remember one of the cases that escaped from my mediation because I entered late. I went to court. I was in the court sitting, and I was a big mess in the court when I bring all the things that were happening there. And I tell the judge, I don't think anyone can make a decision with this information because the artifacts are not clear here. The case went back to mediation, and we settled in mediation. So I can tell you, not 90%, more than 95% of the time, I was able to mediate because my goal is to bring the objective position of the part. What is happening there? What is the money? Who is owner? I'm being able to settle this without any additional dispute. When all the parties have the right information and they understand that there is nothing else to decide there, what you want to leave a third party, the judge, make a decision. when you can make a decision in a mediation on your own terms between a negotiation. So this is exactly what I do all the time as an expert witness, and I can tell you that I'm very proud. And maybe on my profession, because I have very big corporate clients, I have financial people that do their taxes with me, but on the forensic part, I am able to bring justice and fairness. And I can tell you that I enjoy a lot to see the relief on the other part when I was able to put a clear report that everything is correct and they is help the parties make decisions.
So basically, Gustavo,
I can hardly hear you, Steve.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, here you go.
Okay. So basically, Gustavo, you are a forensic, okay? Find the money, that saying that we had, follow the money. You're
Correct.
the guy. You're the
I am the
guy
guy.
that follows the money. You're the guy that
Yeah.
figures out who's hiding what, who's putting it in where, and as to why. And not too many
Yeah.
people know that because there is ways to hide money, as you will know. You got trust, you got, all kinds of other stuff, policies, etc., etc. But the saying that, you follow the money and you'll find the truth, that is so truth, and you just verified it for me. You know,
Yeah, correct.
you follow the money, you'll get to the truth.
Uh-huh.
And there's a lot of people out there that are doing wrong, and when they hire an individual like yourself with all the knowledge and experience that you have in this campus, I
Mhm.
mean, it's just a no-brainer. I wish I'd known you when I got divorced, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah. And as a matter of fact, let me confess you, in my case, my profession that has so many pressure all the time during the year, the deadline, the report, the filings, the adjustment. I have a lot of pressure on my profession in every service that we offer. And people don't know what is happening to CPAs in an office. As a matter of fact, usually CPA are not so public. They're hidden in an office. That's why there are not so many CPAs on Chamber of Commerce and another place. I mean, a real CPA that likes to be in the street as a social person. No, but I can tell you from all this pressure I have in my profession, the part of forensic is the one that I enjoy more because I have a direct impact in human beings, but it's the easiest part for me because it's so easy for me to look at the number, look at the flow, understand, oh, I see this in the past. I know where it's flowing. So my goal is not only about understanding this and be sure that I have the right information with me and be able to tell the lawyer because I do not have the case and I had to follow the lawyer strategy. I told this all the time to my client. The client tell me, no, but we should do that. Hey, look, your lawyer is the leader here. He's the one that do the strategy and I had to follow him. What I have to do is to tell him what is my perception about finance and recommend him what to request, what document to request. I even sometimes, most of the time, I prepare a specific question to make to me in a case. Why? Because I'm in court and there's information that I want to share. I cannot say, hey, I have something to say. No, I don't know la lengua. No, I can talk. I depends. I depend on the question made by the lawyers and the judge. So I even give question, hey, ask me about this point, ask me about this other point, and I'm going to give the right information. And this is the important thing, obviously not only about discover it, about putting this in order and create a report that can be presented in court, which is a very critical and responsible part because as a forensic, my role is not to make my client win. Everybody think, oh, this is my forensic. Hey, wait, I'm the forensic of the case, but you hire me because you are the weak part. You need me. Sometimes when the strong part come to me, I tell him, I think that you should not hire me. I'm not going to do any good for you in the court. I have to report what I have to report. But when I make a report, the report is good for the two parties. It's going to be neutral. Obviously, the weaker part is going to have more benefits. No, and this is very important to understand. But the final role of my process, if after I have all the knowledge and I know that I have a lot of things that other parties don't know, is to be able to report this in a so simple way that any teenager can understand what I'm talking about. So I make
Exactly.
easy to the parties. First, to have an agreement on a mediation. In a mediation, to don't allow a third party make a decision, or if I go to the court, that the judge make a decision with facts, with base of information that he can rely on.
Yeah, because Steve, so you understand, Gustavo, I wanted to explain, Steve is not a lawyer, all right? And the reason I have Steve with the show on the is precisely because I consider him to be like the voice of the people, right? And
Good.
so you and I babble on with our expertise, and his job is to sort of bring this in here
Excellent.
and making sure that we speaking that what other people could understand, you know?
So,
And,
in other words, I need to bring you from professional to layman's terms.
right.
Okay?
Yeah,
So
that's
you
correct.
can understand it. But I also understand that you are a forensic CPA, and
But I
that
want to make a question, Steve. Do you understood what I said?
every single word.
There you
So I made my job.
You
go.
did
I
your
made
job.
my job.
You did your
So
job.
this is my job. My job is to get complex matters and translate it in easy to understand ways, so any layman person is able to make a decision. Oh, this is common sense. This is logic.
And the, and the good thing about it is based on facts. Like these shows that Tony and I have, it's based on facts. We want to bring the facts and let everybody be their own judge. But the facts are crucial. And in what you do, that's exactly what you do. You dig for those facts.
Mhm.
And as you dig for those facts, some facts might be good for one party and not so good for another. But
Yeah,
the
correct.
important thing is that the facts are there and that nobody's being taken advantage of or taken to the cleaners. So, yeah, I was going to ask something, but I'm not going to get there because we're going to change the subject and get political, and we don't want to do that because that's not the show today.
All right, Gustavo, we're bringing you back to the question of the Bar Association and the conference so the people understand. For those of us who are non-lawyers who are listening to this, people like Gustavo, myself, I'll be teaching a course that has to do with political gerrymandering and what's going on in Supreme Court cases. And we have another professional who'll be talking about professional malpractice and chat GPT and if you use it, you get in trouble. If you don't use it, you'll get in trouble. So,
Mhm.
so how do you use this new artificial intelligence in the legal practice and try to avoid getting sued or making
Mhm.
mistakes? These are the kind of things that we'll be discussing at the conference. But all of you who are listening to who are not lawyers, please come because not only can you listen to Gustavo, it may affect you or your friend that is having a case that's being litigated, and you have an expert, you have his business card, and you'll be able to ask questions. The other thing is what you'll be able to do um, is participate in another part of this conference where we're having the moot court competition, and so. I want to tell you that one of the things that we're doing this weekend, or that weekend of the 18th and 19th, is the moot court competition of schools from around the country. And with that is a process by where we invite schools from around the country. Moot court is like a practice, right? It's a practice court that young lawyers practice litigation. So they get in front of the judges and they get to practice litigating. But as I said in my opening, no one knows nothing about Puerto Rico. And Gustavo knows how complex that issue is, whether Puerto Rico should be a state or is a
Mhm.
territory or free associated state. Nadie sabe. So what happens, the reason is because Puerto Rico is in a very strange place constitutionally, you know?
Yeah.
It's a very strange place. It's under something called the territorial clause. Nobody ever studies that in school, in law school, and all we hear is bochinche. You know, well, he said, he said, he said, he said.
And I would like to add something to this, Tony,
Go
because
ahead,
I
go
was
ahead.
very interested in your introduction. Not only on this part, but in taxes. I call Puerto Rico the twilight zone for taxes because Puerto Rico, the first thing is that they take you out from taxes and then they bring you back. with the 933 section, they take you up, or this doesn't apply to Puerto Rico. And then they bring you back with some clauses. But it's not clear. There are so many, for example, for taxes, Puerto Rico is supposed to be a foreign country. And there are very strict rule about foreign countries that doesn't apply to Puerto Rico. Why? Because if I have a U.S. citizen making business in Colombia, and I don't have access to audit him in Colombia, so I want to have extremely high penalties and a very strict way to ask for him for report. But in Puerto Rico, come on, all the banks are regulated by the Federal Reserve. There is a internal revenue there. There is a federal jail system. There is a federal Department of Justice. Yeah, I go beyond. In Puerto Rico, there is more activity in the criminal part from the federal government than from the state government. And you say, so why Puerto Rico have to be subject to very strict foreign tax regulation when this is for this purpose is like in the States? And I think it's not fair. And so I would love to contribute to you this and many other things that I was
Well,
trying in the past to be here,
yeah,
and I was not here because Puerto Rico is too small. 3 million people that they love to spend their day having fun, and there are many things that happen to us there that nobody's taking care.
you got me a good question. I think that for 2 years, we do the moot court every 2 years, right? And in the past, I've done the question of the equal protection clause and how the equal protection clause applies to Puerto Ricans living on the island compared to Puerto Ricans who do not live on the island. There's a difference, right? So this year we're going to be talking about a pacto bilateral with the United Nations
Bilateral.
and and the representations and the UN treaty, and we're going to be talking about that. But now you reminded me that I could properly fashion with your help a good question about taxation on Puerto Rico.
I have a bullet point that I can share with you, and I
Oh,
can introduce something really nice that nobody talk about.
yeah,
Uh,
so we could
that,
have
that,
by 2 years. I could prepare something very interesting that's different because I want to. Obviously, we have to change the question every 2 years because otherwise everybody knows what the briefs are. There's no answer. By the way, you know that there's no correct answer. There's arguments. It's how you formulate the argument, how you argue. That's what the students are practicing. The questions I pose and have posed are hypothetical questions, right? And then they litigate on this. So now I can pose a hypothetical question on taxation, and it would really enredar. We want to make them think, right? How does the territorial clause apply with the Internal Revenue Code? How does it apply with the local law? And then have them litigate these things and bring to attention the problem that Puerto Rico's status has. Yes, Steve.
Let me ask you a question since we're talking that subject, okay? And as we know, the Commonwealth, is very beneficial to the United States. So having a guy like Gustavo going in there and dividing, you know, what money is now, because the United States make a lot of money out of Puerto Rico and their situation as a Commonwealth right now as we speak. And Puerto Rico owes the United States billions and billions of dollars, and we don't even know how we're going to pay that back. Not talking about the fact that no matter what, we need the Congress to be able to allow us to have our own elections to be able to become independent, and that's never going to happen from what I see. Okay, based on the information and the years that we've been doing with this. But if you were to go into a situation in a case like Puerto Rico, and follow the money, then I'm afraid that we will have so many politicians in jail. Okay, that are putting so much money in their pockets with this back and forth from Puerto Rico to the United States, and who's making money and who's not making money. And I bet you there's a lot of people making more money, okay, and living of of this specific commonwealth because it's very convenient,
Mhm. Yeah, that's correct.
you know, and that's something that we need to address. But you cannot address that until you address the issue of politics in Puerto Rico, and that
Mhm.
cannot be solved until Congress decides that, hey, okay, we're going to give them the opportunity to become independent, allied to the United States, or whatever the situation might be at the end. because we have the Commonwealth independence or being a state of the United, a state 51. Although I don't know, somebody over there wants to do Venezuela 51 or Cuba 51, but that's another subject. But looking at it from a forensic point of view, you would have to spend humongous amount of times trying to figure out where is the money and how we can come to a flat surface where we have a normal government without stealing money to be able to have an independence from Puerto Rico, okay, and still have them because Puerto Rican people are very resourceful, so they can provide for themselves. If that were to be the case, if that's what they were to decide once this issue with the Congress is solved, which I don't think can happen. Although Tony's trying, and there's the bars associations, we have several in the east. We need to go center and west to be able to see if we can get everybody in the same boat to at least get that part done so we can deal with the rest. And a person like you, in any government would be a blessing because I'm pretty sure that even here we have the same scenario. At what level is the question? And that's when an individual with your experience and your professionalism comes to. And that's what beats me when it comes to that. And the fact that you can forensically find these monies, I mean, there should be more people like you. And maybe we would have more check on government, not only here, but everywhere, where the people benefit, okay, from what they need to benefit instead of going through what we're going right now around the world, because it's not only here. Right now, the economies around the world are.
Gustavo, let me ask you: Are CPAs certified by states or the national government?
By states.
By the state. So if you're a CPA in Florida, does that mean you're necessarily a CPA in Puerto Rico?
That's correct. If I have license in Florida, my license is for Florida, not any other state. As a matter of fact, I have a license in Florida and Georgia. I used to have a license in Puerto Rico. I don't have it active right now because the renewal process got so complicated that I decided to stay with my Florida and Georgia. I have to say, we are now in an initiative to try to bring ideas to Puerto Rico. They want to have a stronger economy. Puerto Rico has to make things simple. Economies and market grow when those are open, free, and simple. Bureaucracies and process requirement beyond what is necessary make things worse. Doesn't help the economy.
Yeah. And reciprocity is a term that's used to respect the licenses among different professionals. Like in the legal profession, Florida doesn't receive or doesn't allow reciprocity to any jurisdiction. So you have to take the bar exam in Florida if you want to be admitted to practice in Florida. And whereas other states do admit reciprocity with other states, but Florida is one of those that doesn't allow it. And so you have to take the exams in Florida, and then if you want to be admitted someplace, you have to go and get admitted over there. And the laws change, state to state, obviously. I think accounting, I don't know if accounting changes that much. I guess the laws of what is taxable and not taxable would change, but numbers are numbers, aren't they? And the numbers.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, on my profession, most of the rules are national rules, the GAP and the gas. Obviously, each state have very particular rules, but are very similar. But it's not so different as the law practice. In law practice, for sure, there are many procedures that you have to learn and study before being approved.
All right, listen. So I want to thank you, Gustavo, for joining us today and telling us a little bit about what is forensic accounting for lawyers, how we have to prove it, and obviously you have to take the course in order to get into it in more detail. To hear the very detailed review, I reviewed it. By the way, it's being approved by the Florida Bar as a certified legal education course for lawyers. But for those of you who are in litigation, who are listening to this, hey, pick up that phone, find him, and come to the class, and because it's free for you to be able to join. And then you can go to moot court, and then on Friday we'll have political salsa. So we have all sorts of stuff going on over 2 days at the Florida A&M College of Law, which is downtown Orlando. That's where the site, where the moot court and the conference is going to be, and the classes are going to be. All of that will be in downtown September 18, 19. And if more information, then you just go to our website, please. I'll show it to you now once again. And if I find it here, there we go. Show that. That's our website. Okay. And you can get the information for those particular dates. Gustavo, is there anything else you would like to add to what we've talked about today?
First, to thank you for having me here. I enjoy a lot to share good thing with the community, and we are making an effort to start a seminar for any person who is thinking on divorce. Understand first the financial part of the divorce before spending $20,000 in a case that doesn't take you anywhere. If you have clear the financial part, that usually is the part that is more complex, the case is going to be easier and faster. We are planning to start doing those seminar to any lay person that just want to know where I'm heading to before starting hiring lawyers and know what are my rights and my responsibilities in this case.
Steve.
Well, Gustavo, what's your number? Give us your number.
Yeah, my number is 407-913-5511. I have a website on the cpatorres.com, which is, I have all my information there.
Go ahead and give us that number again.
407-913-5511.
Gustavo, personally, from me, I learned a lot from you. I really appreciate you coming to the show. Thank
No,
you
no.
very much for all.
God bless you. Thank you all. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week with Equal Justice. Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.